The Firebird, French, L'Oiseau de Feu, Russian, Romanized, Zartitsa, is a ballet and orchestral concert work by the Russian composer Igor Stravinsky. It was written for the 1910 Paris season of Sergei Diaghilev's Ballets Russ's company. The original choreography was by Michel Fokine, who collaborated with Alexander Benois and others on a scenario based on the Russian fairy tales of the Firebird and the blessing and curse it possesses for its owner. The Firebird was first performed at the Opéra de Paris on the 25th of June 1910 and was an immediate success, catapulting Stravinsky to international fame and leading to future Diaghilev-Stravinsky collaborations like Petrushka, 1911, and The Rite of Spring, 1913. Costume sketch for the titular Firebird, by Leon Bakst, 1910. The native title for L'Oiseau de Feu the Firebird is French, L'Oiseau de Feu, and Russian, Romanized, Zartitsa. The choreographer is Michel Fokine. The music is by Igor Stravinsky. It is based on Russian folk tales. It premiered the 25th of June 1910 at Palais Garnier. The original ballet company is Ballets Russ's. Set design is by Alexander Golovin and costume design by Leon Bakst. The Firebird's mortal and supernatural elements are distinguished with a system of leitmotifs placed in the harmony-dubbed lead harmony. Stravinsky made a point to use many unique effects in the orchestra, including with ponticello, collegno, flautando, glissando, and fluttertong. Set in the evil immortal Koshchei's castle, the ballet follows Prince Ivan, who battles Koshchei with the help of the magical Firebird. Stravinsky later created 3 concert suites, in 1911, ending with the Infernal Dance, in 1919, which remains the most popular today, and in 1945, featuring significant reorchestration and structural changes. Other choreographers have staged the work with Fokine's original choreography or created entirely new productions using the music, some with different settings or themes from the original. Many recordings of the suites have been made, the first being released in 1928 using the 1911 suite. A film version of the popular Sadler's Wells ballet production, which revived Fokine's original choreography, was created in 1959. Igor Stravinsky, circa 1920s. Igor Stravinsky began studying composition with Nikolai Rimsky-Korsakov in 1902. He completed several works during his time as a student, including his first performed work, Pastoral, 1907, and his first published work, the Symphony in E-flat, 1907, which the composer categorized Opus 1. In February 1909, a performance of his Scherzo Fantastique and Feu d'Artifice in St. Petersburg was attended by the impresario Sergei Diaghilev, who was intrigued by the vividness of Stravinsky's works. Diaghilev founded the art magazine Mir Iskustvo in 1898, but after it ended publication in 1904, he turned towards Paris for artistic opportunities rather than his native Russia. In 1907, Diaghilev presented a 5-concert series of Russian music at the Paris Opera. The next year, he staged the Paris premiere of Rimsky-Korsakov's version of Boris Godunov. By 1909, Diaghilev had connected with Michel Fokine, Leon Bakst, and Alexander Benois, and gained enough money to start his independent ballet company, the Ballets Russ's. Diaghilev commissioned Stravinsky to orchestrate music by Chopin for the ballet Les Sylphides, and the composer was finished by March 1909. Fokine was a renowned dancer, receiving first prize in his class upon graduation from the Imperial Theatre School in 1898. He subsequently entered the Mariinsky Ballet as a soloist and was promoted to lead dancer of the company in 1904. Fokine was dissatisfied with the ballet tradition of glamorous appeals to the audience and interruptions from viewers. He felt that dramatic dance should be strictly displayed with no interruption of illusion, and that the music should be closely connected to the theme. His 1907 ballets The Dying Swan and Les Sylphides were very successful and established Fokine as a competitor to other prominent choreographers. In 1908, Benoist, a member of Diaghilev's Miroskustva circle and friend of Fokine's, arranged for the dancer to prepare a repertoire for the ballet's Russ's 1909 season. As the company's first lead choreographer, the season was very successful, and Diaghilev began organizing plans for the 1910 season soon after. As the ballet's Russes faced financial issues, Diaghilev wanted a new ballet with distinctly Russian music and design, something that had recently become popular with French and other Western audiences. Fokine unofficially led a committee of artists to devise the scenario of this new ballet, including himself, Benoist, the composer Nikolai Cherepnin, and the painter Alexandr Golovin. Benoist recalled that Pyotr Petrovich Potemkin, a poet and ballet enthusiast in Diaghilev's circle, proposed the subject of the Firebird to the artists, citing the 1844 poem A Winter's Journey by Yakov Polonsky that includes the lines, "And in my dreams I see myself on a wolf's back riding along a forest path to do battle with the sorcerers are in that land where a princess sits under lock and key, pining behind massive walls. Their gardens surround a palace all of glass. Their firebirds sing by night and peck at golden fruit." Sketch of scenery for the Firebird by Alexandr Golovin, who designed the sets and co-designed costumes with Leon Bakst for the premiere. The committee drew from several books of Russian fairy tales, in particular Alexander Afanasyev's collection and Pyotr Pavlovich Yershov's The Little Humpbacked Horse. The Immortal King Koshai and the Captive Princess were incorporated from a Muscovite anthology of stories, which also helped determine the Firebird's role in the story. Fokine drew on the stark contrast between good and evil in Russian fairy tales while developing the ballet's characters. The choreographer blended fantasy and reality to create the scenario, a trope of romanticism found in many of Fokine's folkish ballets. Originally, Cherepnin was to compose the music, as he had previously worked on Lepoval and Darmide with Fokine and Benoist, but he withdrew from the project. In September 1909, Diaghilev asked Anatoly Ladov to compose the ballet. Ladov expressed interest in the production, but took too long to meet the 1910 season's deadline. After considering Alexander Glazunov and Nikolai Sokolov, Diaghilev asked Stravinsky to compose the score upon encouragement from Cherepnin and Boris Asafiev. Stravinsky began work in October or November 1909, traveling to the Rimsky-Korsakov household with Andrei Rimsky-Korsakov, the son of Stravinsky's teacher and dedicatee of the Firebird's score. Because Stravinsky began work before Diaghilev officially commissioned him, the composer's sketches did not align with the scenario. The full story became known to him when he met with Fokine in December and received the ballet's planned structure. Fokine ensured the creation of the ballet was an equal effort between the producers and the composer. While the composer worked, Diaghilev organized private performances of the piano score for the press. The French critic Robert Brussel, a friend of Diaghilev's, wrote, "By the end of the first scene, I was conquered. By the last, I was lost in admiration." The manuscript on the music rest, scored over with fine pencilings, revealed a masterpiece. Tamara Kasavina as the Firebird and Michel Fokine as Prince Ivan in the 1910 ballet's Russ's production. Despite later lamenting the descriptive music of a kind I did not want to write, Stravinsky finished the Firebird in about 6 months, and had it fully orchestrated by mid-May 1910. Stravinsky arrived in Paris around the beginning of June to attend the premiere of his first stage work. It was his first visit to Paris. Rehearsals began in Ekaterinensky Hall, and Stravinsky attended every rehearsal to help with the music, often explaining the complicated rhythms to the dancers. Tamara Karsavina, who originated the titular Firebird role, later recalled, "Often he came early to the theater before a rehearsal began in order to play for me over and over again some particularly difficult passage." Stravinsky also worked closely with the conductor for the premiere, Gabriel Pian, and the orchestra to explain the music, but the musicians found it no less bewildering than did the dancers. 2 dress rehearsals were held to accommodate the dancers, many of whom missed their entrances due to the unexpected changes in the music, which sounded quite different when played by the orchestra from what it had sounded like when played on a piano. When the company arrived in Paris, the ballet was not finished, causing Fokine to extend rehearsals. He petitioned Diaghilev to postpone the premiere, but the impresario declined, fearing public disappointment. The ballet's Russ's season began on the 4th of June 1910 with stagings of Schumann's Carnival, Rimsky-Korsakov's Scheherazade, and short productions from the previous season. Fokine's style of dance made great use of interpretive movement. He used ideas of expressiveness, naturalism, vitality, and stylistic consistency. The choreographer employed many forms of dance in the Firebird. The titular Firebird danced classically, Koshai and his subjects in a more violent and grotesque manner, and the princesses in a looser, gentler way. The role of the Firebird differed from that of traditional ballerinas. Female dancers often danced princesses, swans, and lovers. But the Firebird was a mysterious and abstract idea, represented as a magical force rather than a person. Her choreography featured exaggerated classical steps, with deep bending at the waist. Fokine wanted her to be powerful, hard to manage, and rebellious rather than graceful. This new kind of role for a female character was revolutionary for the ballet scene. Program notes for the ballet's Russ's 1910 season, showing the Firebird in the second column. Excitement for the premiere was great, particularly in Diaghilev's circle of mere Iskusstva collaborators. The sculptor Dmitry Steletsky, French, who helped develop the scenario, wrote to Golovin on the 16th of June, "I'm staying till Sunday, I must see the Firebird. I have seen your dazzling drawings and costumes. I like Stravinsky's music in the orchestra and the dances tremendously. I think the whole thing together with your sets will look spectacular." Serov has also put off his departure because of this ballet. Diaghilev remarked of Stravinsky during rehearsals, "Mark him well, he is a man on the eve of celebrity." The Firebird premiered at the Palais Garnier on the 25th of June 1910, and was very well received. The cast starred Karsavina as the Firebird, Fokine as Prince Ivan, Vera Fokina, French, as the youngest princess, and Alexis Bulgakov as Koshai. Karsavina later told an interviewer, "With every performance, success went crescendo." Critics praised the ballet for the unity of the decor, choreography, and music. The old gold vermiculation of the fantastic backcloth seems to have been invented to a formula identical with that of the shimmering web of the orchestra, wrote Henri Guillon in Nouvelle Revue Française. He called the ballet the most exquisite marvel of equilibrium and added that Stravinsky was a delicious musician. Fokine's choreography was seen as a triumph of his creative genius. The natural miming and many styles of dance displayed were popular with audiences. Many critics praised Stravinsky's alignment with Russian nationalist music, one saying, "Stravinsky is the only one who has achieved more than mere attempts to promote Russia's true musical spirit and style." Michel Dmitry Kalvo-Korsy hailed the young composer as the legitimate heir to the mighty handful. Russian audiences viewed the work less favorably, and the Russian premiere was not well received. According to a reviewer in Apollon, many deserted the Hall of Nobles during the performance of this suite. A fellow Rimsky-Korsakov pupil, Joseph Wittels, wrote that Stravinsky, it seems, has forgotten the concept of pleasure in sound. His dissonances unfortunately quickly become wearying, because there are no ideas hidden behind them. Nikolai Myaskovsky reviewed the piano reduction of the full ballet in October 1911 and wrote, "What a wealth of invention! How much intelligence, temperament, talent! What a remarkable, what a rare piece of work this is!" Stravinsky recalled that after the premiere and subsequent performances, he met many figures in the Paris art scene, including Marcel Proust, Sarah Bernhardt, Jean Cocteau, Maurice Ravel, André Gide, and Princess Edmond de Polignac. Claude Debussy was brought on stage after the premiere, and he invited Stravinsky to dinner, beginning a lifelong friendship between the two composers. According to Sergei Bertinson, Sergei Rachmaninoff said of the music, "Great God! What a work of genius this is! This is true Russia." Debussy later said of Stravinsky's score, "What do you expect? One has to start somewhere." Richard Strauss told the composer in private that he had made a mistake in beginning the piece pianissimo instead of astonishing the public with a sudden crash. Shortly after he summed up to the press his experience of hearing the Firebird for the first time by saying, "It's always interesting to hear one's imitators." Sergei Prokofiev, who first heard the piano reduction at a gathering, told Stravinsky, "There was no music in the ballet's introduction, and if there was any, it was from Sadko." In his 1962 autobiography, Stravinsky credited much of the production's success to Golovin's set and Diaghilev's collaborators. He wrote that Fokine choreography always seemed to me to be complicated and overburdened with plastic detail, so that the artists felt, and still feel now, great difficulty in coordinating their steps and gestures with the music. The ballet's success secured Stravinsky's position as Diaghilev's star composer, and there were immediate talks of a sequel, leading to the composition of Petrushka and the Rite of Spring. After the success of the premiere, Diaghilev announced an expansion of performances until the 7th of July 1910, the last of which Stravinsky took his family to from their home in Ust-Ilug. Andrei Rimsky-Korsakov quickly traveled to Paris to see the expanded run, and he later praised the production in a letter to his mother. Following the initial run, Alexander Solotai conducted the Russian premiere on the 23rd of October, performing an early draft of the 1911 suite. Valentina Blinova in the ballet's Russes de Monte Carlo 1935 production. The debut London season of the ballet's Russes took place in 1912 at the Royal Opera House. The third ballet on the programme was The Firebird, which was well received. Osbert Sitwell wrote, "Never until that evening had I heard Stravinsky's name, but as the ballet developed, it was impossible to mistake the genius of the composer, or of the artist who had designed the setting." The ballet's Russes revived the production in 1926 with new settings and costumes by Natalia Goncharova, using Fokine's original choreography. The revival was presented at the Lyceum Theatre in London. In 1916, the first productions of The Firebird and Petrushka on the Iberian Peninsula took place. The ballet's Russes returned in 1921 for short season in Madrid. Several companies presented their own choreographies and designs of the Firebird from 1927 to 1933, including the Berlin State Opera, the Royal Swedish Ballet, the Royal Danish Ballet, and the Croatian National Theatre in Zagreb in 1935 and 1940. Wassily de Basil's Ballets Russes de Monte Carlo revived the Ballets Russes production with Fokine's choreography and Goncharova's designs. Many later revivals modeled their choreography after Fokine's, including Adolphe Bomb's 1945 production at the Ballet Theatre and Serge Leffar's 1954 Paris Opera Ballet production. Serge Grigorov and Lyubov Janicheva's 1954 Sadler's Wells Ballet staging with Fokines choreography is considered one of the most important and authentic revivals. Grigorov and Janicheva worked for Diaghilev during the initial run, and the lead dancer, Margot Fonteine, was coached by Karsavina. The Sadler's Wells staging also used Goncharova's 1926 designs. A film version of the revival was made in 1959. New York City Ballet's first big hit as a company after their founding in 1948 was its staging of the Firebird the following year, with Maria Dolceff as the Firebird, choreography by George Balanchine, and scenery and costumes by Marc Chagall. Balanchine placed a heavy emphasis on the dancing rather than Stravinsky's score, establishing Dolceff as one of the first celebrity American-born and trained ballerinas. Balanchine revised it in 1970 with Jerome Robbins, the latter of whom choreographed Koshai and his subject's dance. The young Chelsea Kirtland danced the title role with a new costume inspired by Chagall's sets. New York City Ballet's production remains the most well-known and longest-lived revival in the United States. Maurice Bijard's 1971 production differed from the traditional themes of the ballet. It featured a male Firebird, representative of the spirit of revolution, leading an all-male group of partisans clad in blue tunics and dungarees through political turmoil. After the Firebird, dressed in a red leotard, dies in battle, he rises from the ashes and lives again, as Bijard said in an interview for The New Yorker. In 1970, John Newmar devised a science fiction production of the ballet set in a futuristic world but retaining the original plot. In the initial Opera Frankfurt production, Koshai is a large glass robot with CCTV eyes. The Firebird, wearing a white space suit, defeats him by destroying a specific valve in his system. Newmar was praised by the critic Oleg Iransky for giving the ballet new life and creating a fascinating effect for the audience which the original Fokine Golovine, production must have had in Paris 60 years ago. Many other choreographers have staged the work with Fokine's original choreography or created entirely new productions using the music. Stagings with new choreography include John Cranko's 1964 production with the Stuttgart Ballet, Glenn Tetley's 1981 staging with the Royal Danish Ballet, John Taras's 1982 Caribbean set rendition with the Dance Theatre of Harlem, Christopher Wheeldon's 1999 production with the Boston Ballet, Krzysztof Paster's 1999 version with the West Australian Ballet, and Alexei Ratmansky's 2012 production with the American Ballet Theatre. Critics praised the music of the Firebird's emotional character. Cyril W. Beaumont wrote, "The Firebird is a supreme example of how music, although having no meaning in itself, can, particularly with a program hint of its intention, evoke a mood appropriate to the ballet concerned." Robert Kraft considered the music as literal as opera, referring to the mimetic specificity with which the music follows the story, a trait Stravinsky later disliked and apologized for. The composer wrote that the Firebird became a centerpiece in his career. His conducting debut was a ballet performance of the Firebird in 1915, and he said that he performed it nearly 1,000 times more. Fokine's revolutionary Firebird character was part of an effort to combine new ideas with classical ballet, showing his wide-ranging abilities as a choreographer. He later described his style as a diversion from the conventional system of gesticulation and a move towards natural expression through movement. The wide resources and experienced artists that Fokine accessed allowed him to create massive productions like the Firebird. Each character or group had their own unique choreography, creating complex scenes like the Infernal Dance, where the Firebird enchants Koshai's subjects but they all dance differently. Dance critic Alistair Macaulay called this the most complex choreography that had ever been attempted in ballet at the time. Drawing by Leon Bakstavzevich Ivan capturing the Firebird. Throughout the score, Stravinsky used leitmotifs, short, recurring musical phrases associated with a particular person, place, or thing, placed in the harmony, a system he later dubbed lead harmony. The idea of lead harmony was likely introduced to the composer through Rimsky-Korsakov's operas The Golden Cockerel, 1907, and Kashki the Deathless, 1902. In these works, mortal elements were associated with the diatonic scales while supernatural elements were associated with the chromatic scale. For example, Stravinsky describes Koshai's lead harmony as consisting of magic thirds. The harmony begins with a major or minor third, and the lower voice ascends a tritone while the higher voice descends a half step. The title character's lead harmony uses a chromatic descent of the first four notes of the introduction, then reversing those notes, giving the music an iridescent sheen, as Eric Walter White described it. Stravinsky wrote that the Firebird may be the first appearance of metrical irregularity in his music. The passage is marked 7/4, with barlins dividing measures into sets of 1 and 2. White wrote that the composer's earlier works made use of consistent musical pulses, which was to be disturbed as little as possible by tempo rubato. Stravinsky remarked that he composed the Firebird in revolt against Rimsky, and that he tried to surpass him with ponticello, collegno, flautando, glissando, and fluttertongue effects. A performance of the full ballet lasts about 45 minutes. The work is scored for a large orchestra with the following instrumentation: woodwinds, 2 piccolos, second doubles, third flute, 2 flutes, 3 oboes, English horn, 3 clarinets in A, third doubles clarinet in D, bass clarinet in B flat, 3 bassoons, third doubles second contrabassoon, contrabassoon, brass, 4 horns in F, 3 trumpets in A, 3 trombones, tuba, 3 on-stage trumpets, 2 on-stage tenor Wagner tubas, 2 on-stage bass Wagner tubas, percussion, bass drum, cymbals, triangle, tambourine, tam-tam, glockenspiel, xylophone, piano, celesta, 3 harps, timpani, strings, first violins, second violins, violas, cellos, double basses. Stravinsky described the orchestra as wastefully large, but White opined that the orchestration allowed him to use a variety of effects, including horn and trombone glissandi borrowed from Rimsky-Korsakov's parts of Mlada, 1872. Beginning with the French episode title followed by the English episode title. Introduction. Introduction. In the first tableau, Le Jardin enchanté de Koshai, Koshai's enchanted garden. Apparition de l'oiseau de fer, poursuivi par Ivan Tsarevich. Appearance of the Firebird pursued by Ivan Tsarevich. Dance de l'oiseau de fer. Dance of the Firebird. Capture de l'oiseau de fer par Ivan Tsarevich. Ivan Tsarevich captures the Firebird. Supplications de l'oiseau de fer. Supplication of the Firebird. Apparition des 13 princesses enchantees. Appearance of the 13 enchanted princesses. Jeu des princesses avec les pommes d'or. The princesses game with the golden apples. Brusque apparition d'Ivan Tsarevich. Sudden appearance of Ivan Tsarevich. Chorovod, ronde, des princesses. The princesses chorovod, round dance. Livre du jour. Daybreak Carillon Féerique. Apparition des monstres gardiens de Koshai et capture d'Ivan Tsarevich. Magic Carillon. Appearance of Koshai's guardian monsters. Capture of Prince Ivan. Arrivée de Koshai l'immortel. Dialogue de Koshai avec Ivan Tsarevich. Intercession des princesses. Arrival of Koshai the immortal. His dialogue with Ivan Tsarevich. Intercession of the princesses. Apparition de l'oiseau de fer. Appearance of the Firebird. Danse de la suite de Koschei, enchantée par l'oiseau de fée. Dance of Koschei's retinue under the Firebird's spell. Dance infernal de tous les sujets de Koschei. Infernal dance of all Koschei's subjects. Pursues. L'oiseau de fée. Lullaby. Firebird. Réveil de Koschei. Mort de Koschei, profonde ténèbres. Koschei's death. In the second tableau, Disparition du palais et des sortilèges de Koschei, Animation des chevaliers petrifies, Allégresse générale. Disappearance of the palace and dissolution of Koschei's enchantments, Animation of the petrified warriors, General thanksgiving. The Firebird opens with a slow introduction describing Koschei's enchanted garden, underlined by the low strings presenting the basis of the Firebird's lead harmony. In the garden are Koschei's enemies petrified into statues. Crescendo and discrescendo phrases in the strings and woodwinds indicate the entrance of the Firebird, being pursued by Prince Ivan. The Firebird's capture by Ivan is depicted with sforzando chords in the horns, and exotic melodies in the oboe, English horn, and viola play as she begs to be released. After the Firebird is freed, Ivan takes one of her feathers, and 13 enchanted princesses, all captives of Koschei, enter the garden to play a catching game. Ivan introduces himself to the youngest princess, with whom he has fallen in love, and they perform a slow krovod. The melody for the krovod is taken from a Russian folk song that Rimsky-Korsakov used in his Sinfonietta on Russian themes, 1879. Off-stage trumpets call the princesses back into the palace, but when Ivan pursues them, bells ring out and Koschei appears in front of the gates, signaled by roars in the timpani and bass drum. Before Koschei can turn Ivan into stone, the prince summons the Firebird with the feather, and she enchants Koschei and his subjects and begins the famous infernal dance. Another Rimsky-Korsakov reference. The melody is borrowed from Rimsky-Korsakov's parts of Mlada, adding syncopation and startling strikes throughout the theme. As the dance winds down, Koschei and his subjects fall asleep from exhaustion. The bassoon introduces the Firebird's tranquil lullaby. Ivan is instructed to destroy the egg that holds Koschei's soul. The music jostles around as Ivan tosses the egg from hand to hand. When Ivan crushes the egg, Koschei dies and his subjects and enemies are freed from their enchantments. The finale opens with a solo horn announcing the break of dawn, another theme borrowed from Rimsky-Korsakov. The theme grows in the orchestra, building into a triumphant celebration among the freed subjects. Ivan Bilibin. A warrior, costume design for a 1931 performance. Shortly after the completion of the Firebird, Stravinsky wrote a piano solo reduction of the whole ballet. The composer later arranged 3 suites for concert performance, dated 1911, 1919, and 1945. (1) Introduction, Koschei's Enchanted Garden, Dance of the Firebird. 2. Supplication of the Firebird. 3. The Princess's Game with Golden Apples. 4. The Princess's Krovod. 5. Infernal Dance of all Koschei's subjects. The first suite, titled Suite Thierry du Canty dans l'Oiseau de Fée, was composed in 1911 and published by P. Jurgensen the following year. The instrumentation is essentially the same as that of the ballet. The score was printed from the same plates, only the new endings for the movements were newly engraved. A performance of the 1911 suite lasts about 21 minutes. 1. Introduction, The Firebird and its Dance, variation of the Firebird. 2. The Princess's Karovod, Rondo. 3. Infernal Dance of King Kashkai. 4. Lullaby. 5. Finale. This suite was composed in Morges, Switzerland, for a smaller orchestra. Walsh alleged the suite was composed to re-copyright the work, as Stravinsky sold the new suite to his publisher J&W Chester, despite the original ballet still being in copyright. The score contained many errors. Stravinsky wrote in 1952 that the parts of the 1919 version were in such poor condition and so full of mistakes. Regardless, the 1919 suite remains the most popular today. A performance of the 1919 suite lasts about 26 minutes. 1. Introduction, Prelude and Dance of the Firebird, Variations, Firebird. 2. Pantomime 1. 3. Pas de deux, Firebird and Ivan Tsarevich. 4. Pantomime 2. 5. Scherzo, Dance of the Princesses. 6. Pantomime 3. 7. Rondo, Karovod. 8. Infernal Dance. 9. Lullaby, Firebird. 10. Final Hymn. In 1945, shortly before he acquired American citizenship, Stravinsky was contacted by Leeds Music with a proposal to revise the orchestration of his first 3 ballets to recopyright them in the United States. The composer agreed and fashioned a new suite based on the 1919 version, adding to it and reorchestrating several minutes of the pantomimes from the original score. The only instrumentation change was the addition of a snare drum. A performance of the 1945 suite lasts about 28 minutes. Stravinsky received several commissions to transcribe his works for player pianos, some from the London Aeolian Company and some from the Paris Pleyel Company. In 1928, the Aeolian Company published an audiographic piano roll of the Firebird, containing both the piano reduction and comments on the work by Stravinsky. The composer identified many of the lead harmonies in the opening comments of the roll, providing an invaluable resource for information on the ballet. The first orchestral recording of the Firebird was released by Columbia Records in 1928 with Stravinsky conducting Lorchester Day concerts Strarum. The 78 RPM record consisted of the 1911 suite with the lullaby and finale from the 1919 suite, as well as a recording of The Rite of Spring. In 1933, Stravinsky and the violinist Samuel Dushkin recorded a reduction of the scherzo and lullaby for his master's voice. Stravinsky recorded the 1945 suite with the Philharmonic Symphony Orchestra of New York in 1946, and the complete ballet with the Columbia Symphony Orchestra in 1961. A film version of the Sadler's Wells Ballet revival was made in 1959, with Margot Fonteyn in the lead role.